At the statement earlier made that we all went to Washington to change Washington and Washington changed us. I don't think that applies to me. Washington did not change me. I would like to change Washington.
But I have a bill in that might help a lot of people, black or white or whomever. I have a bill in that would immediately help these people who are trying to get a start, that they would never have to pay any taxes or payroll taxes if they just happen to be a waiter or waitress, to give them a chance to get ahead and get a good job.
Congressman Paul, your answer is to cut both taxes and spending. You say that you would eliminate the IRS, the CIA, the Federal Reserve, the Department of Homeland Security, Medicare. I know that you used to want to end the FBI. I'm not sure whether you still support that idea.
I think you have questions and concerns about the bonanza in the hedge fund industry. Do you?
Yes, I think this is not a consequence of free markets. What's happening is there's transfer of wealth from the poor and the middle class to the wealthy. This comes about because of a monetary system that we have. When you inflate a currency or destroy a currency, the middle class gets wiped out. So the people who get to use the money first, which is created by the Federal Reserve System, benefit. So the money gravitates to the banks and to Wall Street. So that's why you have more billionaires than ever before. Today, this country is in the middle of a recession for a lot of people. Michigan knows about it. Poor people know about it. The middle class knows about it. Wall Street doesn't know about it. Washington, D.C. doesn't know about it. But it's because of the monetary system and the excessive spending. As long as we live beyond our means, we are destined to live beneath our means. And we have lived beyond our means because we are financing a foreign policy that is so extravagant and beyond what we can control, as well as the spending here at home. And we're depending on the creation of money out of thin air, which is nothing more than debasement of the currency. It's counterfeit, and it is a natural, predictable consequence that you're going to have people benefit from it and other people suffer. So if you want a healthy economy, you have to study monetary theory and figure out why it is that we're suffering. And everybody doesn't suffer equally, or this wouldn't be so bad. It's always the poor people, those on retired incomes, that suffer the most. But the politicians and those who get to use the money first, like the military-industrial complex, they make a lot of money and they benefit from it.
Now, you have been, I think, spot on in saying that the Federal Reserve created the stock bubble with low margin rates, and it created the housing bubble with low mortgage rates. Yet I never hear about anyone talking about investigating the Fed in Congress. It's a creature of Congress. Why don't we do it?
You're absolutely right. That's why I introduce a bill constantly to audit the Federal Reserve. We've created the Federal Reserve, and it has no oversight. We don't even know if they have the gold there anymore. And it's so important, yet there's no oversight. I think it's even more secret than the CIA. So to me, it ought to be open, and the American people ought to know. But unfortunately, the members of Congress don't have much interest or concern or understanding of how the Fed works, so they are totally neglectful.
But Barack Obama is not going to talk about the goal of getting rid of the income tax and dealing with monetary policy. I mean, he is too much into the welfare state issue, not quite understanding how free market economics is the truly compassionate system. If we care about the poor and want to help the poor, you have to have free markets. You can't have a welfare state in order to try to take care of people.
So I think that in our national security situation, we have to assume that Iran is an aggressive nation, that it wants to injure the United States, and it's going to use surrogates to do it. Now, if you have an Iran actively seeking nuclear weaponry, as you do, and if you have the ability of that country to hand it off to a Hezbollah or an Al-Qaeda or anybody else, you withdraw from the region, you give them carte blanche to do what they want. Do you not, Congressman?
See, I think you're concerned about the wrong country right now, because more than half of the Al-Qaeda that are committing suicide in Iraq right now are Saudis, and nobody even talks about
look,
that.
I'm concerned about all the things, but when they're seeking a nuke...
Hi, Congressman. My question is regarding the youth vote today. Throughout the presidential primaries, we've seen staggering amounts of voters show up and support the Democratic Party. In Iowa, for voters under 30, they almost 4-1 supported Democrats. In New Hampshire, Democrats received 61% of the youth vote. In South Carolina, 73,000 young voters showed up for Democrats, while only 43,000 showed up for Republicans. And in the Nevada caucuses, almost 3-1 were supporting Democratic candidates. And my question to you is, why do you feel that young voters are so overwhelmingly for the Democratic Party?
Well, you ought to come to some of our rallies and see how the young people are responding to me. But I think your statistics are probably correct. And it's not so much that the Democrats have offered us very much and anything really different. What has happened is Republican parties deserve to be punished. They've gotten us into a war. There's an undeclared war, and it looks like it will never end. One of our candidates say we should stay there for 100 years. We've run up the deficit. We claim we were conservatives. We didn't do it. And we've done exactly opposite of what we have said. So a lot of people are turned off. But if you look at the reason, what you need to do is come and look at some of our rallies and talk to the young people who rally to us. And guess what I offer them? Freedom. Freedom to lead their lone lives as they choose. Freedom to spend their money as they choose. And freedom to get out from under the heavy hand of government. Freedom from the threat that there's going to be a draft. Freedom from the intrusiveness of the federal government coming in with national ID cards. Invasion of our internet. Looking at our emails and having searches without warrants. This is what the young people I meet are looking for. And they are not looking for national ID cards. And they're not really, the people I meet, the young people I meet, are not looking for handouts. They just want to be left alone. A lot of young people work hard, try to work their way through college, and they go out and to get a job that pays tips. For instance, I have a bill that says no taxes on tips, but I happen to take the position that I don't give grants from the federal government to people who need the money, because I don't believe I have the right to take the money away from somebody who didn't get to go to college and pay somebody else. But if you get the government out of the way and get the taxes down, give them a sound currency so there's no inflation. None of the other candidates have talked about sound money and why we shouldn't print money out of thin air. Until we talk about that, we can't solve the problem of the business cycle, the financial bubble bursting that we see, the housing collapse that we have, and the inflation, the high cost of living. This is a monetary policy, and it's astounding when I talk to the young people on campuses. They're cheering loudly when I attack the Federal Reserve System.
I think that's part of it. And Fox, I think, is tied pretty close to some of the national policy issues. And
but you're a Republican.
Yeah, but they don't. They're not. That's the problem. If you measured everything I've ever said, every vote I've ever taken against the Constitution, you know, I'm a strict constitutionalist. Are you suggesting the Republicans should write me off because I'm a strict constitutionalist? I'm the most conservative member here. I have voted, you know, against more spending and waste in government than anybody else. So you're suggesting that I'm not electable and the Republicans don't want me because I'm a strict fiscal conservative? Because I believe in civil liberties? Why should we not be defending civil liberties? And why should we not be talking about foreign policy that used to be the part of the Republican Party? Mr. Republican Robert Taft didn't even want us to be in NATO. And you're saying now that we have to continue to borrow money from China to finance this empire that we can't afford? Let me see if I get this right. We need to borrow $10 billion from China, and then we give it to Musharraf, who's a military dictator who overthrew an elected government, and then we go to war, we lose all these lives promoting democracy in Iraq. I mean, what's going on here?
And it's that feeling that drives this meetup group in New Jersey to get together every week. They've been gathering religiously for the past 6 months. Today, they're making more signs for their weekly rally.
When I got involved in June, there was virtually no media coverage at all. And since I've been standing out in the corner every weekend since June and just doing this and really spreading the word, now there's a lot more coverage, and it's really great. So I really believe that we're making a difference.
Most campaigns work to connect more supporters with the candidate. But Zephyr Teachout says Ron Paul supporters are connecting more with each other. And that's a new way of building a political movement.
The funny thing about the Ron Paul campaign is he's like a little dot here in the middle. And all the support and excitement and creativity and generativity is out here. But that's a really powerful structure and probably will outlast the campaign.